Hi, I'm Finch Berling, and this is More Than Streams, the weekly music marketing podcast that will teach you how to get, you guessed it, more than streams. Today, I want to talk about money. The reason some of you went into music and the reason some of you might stop making music. Money. It all comes down to money. How you actually make it as a musician. Not in theory, not someday when you blow up, but right now, at whatever stage you're in. I know some of you are uncomfortable with this topic. There is this idea in music that caring too much about money means you're not a real artist, or that you're selling out, or that the music should be enough. And I want to challenge that today because I think that belief is actually one of the biggest things holding independent musicians back. So let me start with some math. The average Spotify payout per stream is somewhere around 0.003. To make $1,000 from streaming, you need somewhere between 200,000 and 300,000 streams. And that's assuming you target tier 1 countries, which is many times not the case. Because Spotify pays less if your audience is from tier 2 or tier 3 countries. Streaming is not a revenue strategy for most independent musicians. Streams are useful for the algorithm, for playlist consideration, for credibility when you're pitching yourself to venues or labels, but as a way to pay your rent, they are not it. At least not until you're operating at a scale that takes years to reach. So if streaming are not the answer for money, what is? In the last podcast episode, John from the Rocket House said something that has stayed with me. He said, "Your music is not the product. You are the product. The music is how people find you. What you sell is the experience of actually being your fan." This is the shift that changes everything when it comes to income. If your music is the product, you can only make money when people pay for the music. And as we just covered, the music pays almost nothing at the scale most independent musicians are at. But if you are the product, then everything you know becomes something you can offer. Everything you have learned, everything you have built, every skill you have picked up from years of working in this industry, all of that has value and people will pay for it. Or every experience you can share with your audience is worth money. Making people feel something is worth money, and sometimes your music alone can't reach that scale. I noticed that the artists who are making big money right now are not always the ones with the most streams. Many times they just simply found out that their knowledge, their talent, and even their presence, their assets that can be packed in a dozen different ways. So before I give you the practical breakdown, I want to ask you one question. And I want you to actually think about it rather than just moving on to the next section. The question is, what do you actually want from your music career? I follow a creator named Ali Abal, and he said something once that I think about a lot. He said that if you want to get rich, you have to be a little unhealthy about it, almost obsessive about it. You have to be willing to prioritize it above a lot of other things, at least for a period of time. I believe exactly the same is true about success in music. If you want music to be a hobby, something that brings you joy without the pressure of income, that is completely valid. It is actually a beautiful choice, and you need to make it clear for yourself and stop beating yourself up for not grinding harder. You do not owe anyone a career in music, so it's okay if you just want to do it as a hobby and you need to recognize it. But if you want music to be your livelihood, If you want it to be the thing that pays your bills and fills your calendar, then you need to be honest about what it requires. And it requires sacrifice. It requires building skills outside of making music, marketing, sales, copywriting, time management, and the ability to have uncomfortable conversations about money. And many of the greatest musicians are basically just really good at doing business. Even if they have a rich father, they built their social and business skills at a young age, or they simply had a talent for it. And if you have this dream that one day some label or manager will find you and take care of the business side of music for you, that will probably never happen. And even if it does, you will still need good business and marketing skills to be able to communicate with them. If you want a serious career, start doing the work. So now that you understand that you can't hope someone will invest in you, here's the part most musicians resist. You have to invest in yourself before you earn. That investment is two things: time and money. Time means learning the things nobody teaches you in music school. How to run ads, how to write a pitch email, how to build a funnel, how to grow an audience that converts. Because a viral video rarely means a viral song. You will spend months doing things that do not work before you understand what does. Money means putting real resources behind your career. A small ad budget, a course that teaches you a skill that you do not have yet. I spent my own money on ads before I made a single euro back. I paid for 3 years in business school. I ran campaigns that did not work, and I did that long enough to understand why they didn't work, which is the only way you actually learn. If you're afraid to invest anything into your music career, your chances of building something are close to zero. Not because the industry is unfair, though it can be, but because you're competing against people who are investing, and the gap only gets bigger over time. Okay, that was a long intro, and now here is the practical part I promised. These are the ways independent musicians are building income right now. The first way is teaching and educating other musicians. Once you have been doing music for a while, you know things that new musicians don't know. You know how to play the guitar, you know how to sing, you know how to run ads, you know what a release campaign looks like. And that knowledge is worth money. And there are musicians who will pay for it. A one-on-one coaching session, a small online course, or a newsletter, a YouTube channel, those are simple ways to share your knowledge and get paid. You don't need to be famous to teach. You need to be ahead of the person you're teaching. And 3 years into the teaching business, I've built a significant part of my income this way. The second way to make money as a musician is selling your talent directly to other musicians and to the industry, like doing session work or vocal features, music production for other artists, mixing, mastering, songwriting. If you're good at making music, other musicians need what you can do. This is one of the most underrated income streams I see, and it also builds relationships that often open doors to bigger things later. You can start by setting up an account on Fiverr or on a website called Sound Better, or you can just DM other musicians and see if they need your help. The third way is performing live. Live performance is still where large portion of music income lives for working artists. Building toward a consistent live calendar, even at the local scale, changes the financial picture completely. And as Grayson Rep shared in episode 8, a lot of this comes down to relationships. The musicians who get consistent bookings are not always the best musicians in the room. They are the ones who made it easy for venues and promoters to say yes. If you want to learn more about landing shows, go back to episode 8. Now, moving on, the fourth way is sync licensing. This means getting your music placed on film, TV, YouTube videos, advertisements, video games, and podcasts even. A well-placed sync deal can pay significantly more than months of streaming income, and once your music is registered in a licensed library, it can earn passively for years. Music supervisors are looking for things that are specific and distinctive and not generic, which means having a strong brand and a clear sound actually gives you a direct financial advantage here. And to be completely honest, I'm not an expert in this area, so I will try to get a guest for one of my future episodes to explain more on how to get signed for those sync licensing deals. Let's move on. The fifth way to get paid is merch. And this is one of the oldest and most consistent income streams in music. And it works at every level. You don't need to be selling out arenas to sell a hoodie or a limited poster to your most engaged fans. Print-on-demand services mean there is no upfront stock cost. A small, loyal audience that buys merch is worth more than a large passive audience that streams your music and moves on and doesn't even remember your name. Merch also works as a branding tool because every person wearing your name is a walking advertisement. People walking around with Adidas shirts are a great example of that. The sixth way to get paid is by having a paid community or direct fan support. Platforms like Patreon or Vault.fm let your biggest fans pay for access to more of you. Behind the scenes content, early releases, direct conversations, exclusive sessions, live streams. The price point does not have to be high. 100 people paying €5. $5. I'm sorry that I'm talking in euros. 100 people paying $5 a month is $500 a month, which is more than most independent artists make from streaming. And the people in that community are the most invested fans you have, which means they're also the most likely to buy a ticket and share your music and to stay with you long term. The seventh way is brand deals and sponsorships. Once you have a consistent audience, even a small and specific one, brands in your space will pay to reach them. A music gear company, a headphone brand, an app that musicians use. You don't need millions of followers for this work. You need a clear niche and an engaged audience. Brands are increasingly moving away from chasing celebrities and toward paying for the trust that niche creators have built with their communities. You can send a DM today to, Logic Pro or Ableton or Pro Tools, and only if you have been using them, of course, and you can offer them to create a video for $50. And over time, increase your prices and get better at making sponsored videos. The eighth and the last way I want to talk about in this episode about how to make money is playlist curation. Building and growing your own Spotify playlists is a real business, and it is one that almost nobody outside of this industry talks about. Platforms like SubmitHub pay curators to review submissions, and you can build an audience around a playlist in your genre, and that audience becomes an asset that exists independently. It also functions as a direct marketing channel for your own music. I have been a curator on over 10 platforms over years, and I have reviewed over 50,000 songs. Platforms currently pay me between $2 to $10 per submission, so you can do the math on how much I've made as a playlist curator. This is money that I can reinvest in my music and my business, and it's a job that only takes 1 to 2 hours a day. I have good news for you because I have a new $1 training where I share more about this playlist strategy, and if you want to watch this new training now, I will leave a link in the description of this episode, or you can also find it in my Instagram link in bio. And now it's time to wrap up this short episode. None of these income ideas are quick, but all of them work and all of them are available to you at whatever stage you're in right now. The mistake I see over and over is musicians waiting until they're ready, waiting until they have more followers or more streams or more credibility or more time, which is very common. But the credibility comes from starting. The income comes from starting. Every musician I know who is actually making a living from music got there by picking a direction and going deep on it before they felt ready. They kept going when no one believed in them, when the numbers were low, when they just got kicked out of their apartment, or when they moved to LA without knowing anyone. Pick one of the 8 income ideas I just described and write down one concrete action you can take toward it this week. And not next month, this week, or even today. You need to start. Now, or soon, when you're ready, but just start. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow my podcast More Than Streams and leave a comment. And if you want to learn more from me, check out my programs inside my store. There is a link in the description. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.